So the first thing that we're going to look at is central tendency. That is, we're going to measure the different types of central tendencies that you see on maybe a daily basis or fairly often anyways. Now, central tendencies are very, very common. They're one of the most cited forms of statistics. And it's called central tendency because it's trying to get out where the center tends to be, right? Where is the center tending to be? Now, here's the issue with that, is that the word center is a little bit arbitrary. If we have a lot of data, okay, and the data is not really nice looking, then you may say the center is one place, and I may say the center is another. For instance, if we were doing income in the United States, and you looked at somebody's income, let's say Bill Gates, versus the person who makes $0, you may go halfway between that, and you may say the center is, I don't know how much Bill Gates makes. Let's say he makes $10 billion, $10 billion. So you may say the center is at 5 billion. Well, again, that might not give you an accurate picture of what's actually happening. Okay, so this idea of center will refine further. Now, the measures themselves that we're going to look at are mean, median, and mode. All right, so most people know this. The mean is the average. And what I mean by average is you add everything up and divide by how many things are in the set. So if you have a bunch of things in a set, you add them up. Now, the notation for adding things up is a sigma, so you often see it this way. Sigma xi divide by n. So add a bunch of stuff up. These things are whatever's in your set. Divide by the amount in your set. Okay, so you add up all your entries, divide by n, however many things are in the set. Median is the middle number. So you list out all the numbers from highest to lowest, or from lowest to highest, and you pick the middle one. Now, if there's two middle numbers, for instance, if you have an even number of things, then you basically take those two middle numbers and you take the average of those two middle ones. Okay. Mode is the most often occurring number. So it's how often did things occur. Now, there are times when we can have two numbers that occur the same number of times. So let's say 3 and 5 both occur 20 times. Well, then 3 and 5 would both be the modes. All right, and we'd say we have a situation where these are bimodal. If we had three numbers which occurred, let's say 3, 4, and 5, all occurred 20 times, that was the most of any, we'd say it's trimodal. There's three modes. Okay. Now, most of you know mean, median, and mode, and so we're not going to take a whole lot of time describing it. I'd rather just look at some examples and find the measures of central tendencies with those examples. So let's pretend that we took 5 people and we calculated their salary. So we have A, B, C, D, and E, and then we have these salaries. Okay? So I want you to find the mean, the median, and the mode of this set of salaries. Push pause on the video, find those things, and then come back. All right, so hopefully you've done that, and it's a fairly straightforward argument about how to get these. But I'll go through a little bit of the calculations here. So if we're trying to find the mean, what we do is we take 38,500 and add it to 35,000 and add that to all the other entries. In fact, let me just erase that. Add all the other entries. And then divide by 5. So you sum up, whoops. Make sure I'm getting that. Okay. So you sum up all the entries, and in this case, divide, well, I'll write a 5 down there. 5. Okay. And what I got for my average was 83,500. All right. For your median, well, what I'll do is I'll start crossing things out. So the lowest and the highest, we can cross those out. Then I can go and cross out the next lowest, the next highest. So my median is 45,000. That's the middle number, if I listed them all out. Not the middle number, by the way, in list, but just the middle number in terms of ordering. Now the last measure of central tendency is the mode. Remember, this is the most often. And if you look at all these numbers, well, nothing occurs twice. So if nothing occurs twice, or nothing occurs more than once, we say that there is no mode in this situation. Okay. Now, before we move on, I want to point out the fact that our mean is significantly bigger than our median. And the reason why our average is significantly bigger than the median is because we have this kind of high value. If you had looked at these, these first three, between 45 and 35,000, even E, we're at 62,000, and then D, I have quite a big number there. And I want to point out, this is always what happens if you get a really big number. When you get really big numbers, your mean goes up quite drastically sometimes, and your median stays about the same. So, for instance, if Bill Gates were to join our class, the average income would jump enormously. We might have an average income of, well, in the hundreds of millions of dollars, where the median income wouldn't change much. So that's why when you actually listen to politicians or to economists or something, they always talk about median salaries. And the reason that is because we don't want a couple of very rich people to kind of throw off the, again, we're looking for where the center tends to be. So we're looking at median in the case of salaries. All right, I want you to find the measures of central tendencies in this example. Push pause on the video and then come back. All right, so hopefully you did that. I'm going to calculate these fairly quickly. Mean, you add everything up, 140 plus 140 plus 170 plus 210. Divide that by 4. Let me calculate that. 140 plus 140 plus 170 plus 210. and then hit divide by 4. By the way, make sure you're punching into your calculator right. But you get a mean of 165. Okay. Now, the median for this set, well, this is in actual numeric order. So if we look, the top one's 210, bottom one's 140. Now here's that situation where you had two middle numbers. And so you have to basically take the average of those. So if you go halfway between 140 and 170, you get 155. Okay. So the median is 155. And by the way, this one we do have a mode. Our mode is 140. Okay, it's the thing that occurred most often. So you see here that just the calculations of mean, median, and mode. Again, last page we saw the mean was 165, median was 155, mode here is 140. And by the way, on a test or on a quiz or something, it's perfectly okay to get decimals in these. So for instance, probably if we would have instead of said this was 140, let's say we had 141. All right. Then the average would have been 165.5. And when you write that down, when you write an average is 165.5, that's perfectly acceptable for an average. All right. So all I'm saying is it's perfectly it's perfectly normal and should be comfortable to get decimal points in your answers. Now, one thing that we like to do is we like to really understand the meaning of what the average, what the mean is, and what the median is. And so sometimes we'll make up examples like this. Let's pretend I have a set of three objects, and three numbers, I should say. And the numbers in this set, 2, 5, and some other number which I called x. Now, I don't know what that third number is, but what I want to do is I want to take that set and I want to use use some other information to find what x has to be. So this is a lot like an algebraic problem, okay, that we haven't yet set it up, but we'll set it up in just a second. So the first question says, what could we make x so that the mean, or average, is 4? Well, again, this is a fairly straightforward problem once we know what average is. If I know what average is, then I know that to find the average, you're going to have to add up all three of those numbers, the 2, the 5, and the x, and divide by 3. And saying that the mean is 4, we're saying that that should be equal to 4. Now what we're going to do, we can do an algebraic step where I get rid of this 3 in the denominator by multiplying both sides by 3. Let me multiply that side, multiply that side. And so if I wanted an average of 4, what I'd have to do is I'd have to say, well, 2 plus 5 plus x, because that would have, again, got rid of the 3 here, got rid of 3 here, is equal to 12. And in this case, x would have to have been 5 for this whole thing to work. Okay? So if I want the average to be 4, then the number x should have to be 5. All right? Now the median works a little bit different. If I wanted the median to be 4, what you're going to have to use, you're going to have to use an x value so that the middle number becomes a 4. Now in this case, I have a 2 and a 5. So notice that if I make the x a 4, I'd have 2, 5, and 4 as my set. And sure enough, the middle number there is 4. So the solution to the second one is x is equal to 4. All right, the first one we said x had to be 5. The second one we said x has to be 4. Now be very careful about this, all right? Because it turns out that sometimes there are things you can do and sometimes there are things you can't do. All right, so I want you on your own to try to answer these two questions. Push pause on the video and then come back. All right, so here's the deal. With the mean, you shouldn't have any problem. We say, well, 2 plus 5 plus x divided by 3. Now we have to make it 8. All right. So when we multiply both sides by 3, you'll get 2 plus 5 plus x, plus 8. Ugh. Excuse me. 2 plus 5 plus x has to be equal to 24. All right. And therefore x has to be 17. And so to make the mean 8, let x be 17, and we're good to go. All right. However, there is a problem in this second one. I want you to notice that if we make x, let's say 8 here, well, then the middle number is 5. In fact, whatever I make x, if x is 5 or higher, then the middle number will be 5. If x was 2 or lower, then the middle number would be 2. And if x was between 2 and 5, then it's whatever x happens to be. So if it was a 4, it'd be a 4. If it was a 3, it'd be a 3. All right? So basically what we're saying here is that the median always has to be between, well, in this case, has to be between 2 and 5. All right? So what could we make x so that the median is 8? Basically, what we're saying is nothing. Nothing can work. All right? So to make the median be 8, there's no possible way that that could work. All right? So you do have to be careful on some of these things.